What's the benefit of connecting nonprofit to for-profit businesses, especially geared towards college athletes in this NIL space? She is actually an amazing entrepreneur who helps connect nonprofit and for-profit organizations. How can athletes create their own business for themselves? And in doing so, would it be more beneficial for them to partner with the already existing nonprofit or create one for themselves?
So I say it depends on the athlete's capacity.
What's the benefit of connecting nonprofit to for-profit businesses, especially geared towards college athletes in this NIL space?
Yeah, so I'll start with the basics of connecting a nonprofit to a for-profit.
Nonprofit and no-profit are two different things.
Yep. And so nonprofit means we are not here to generate a profit to put in our pockets. Before you even enter a partnership as a for-profit or a nonprofit, ask yourself the question, what are we doing this for?
Welcome to another edition of Athletes Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host and creator, Alex Turner, and here we have another amazing episode where we're going to make sure you understand how to create a business as a college athlete and also how to understand how to maneuver through the branding and marketing aspects as well. So today I have an amazing guest today. This is Jennifer Paulino. She is actually an amazing entrepreneur who helps connect nonprofit and for-profit organizations. So basically they are able to utilize the funds and the resources provided for them at a higher level. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're actually starting to transition into athletes as well, correct?
That is correct. So I started my career doing experiential marketing and media sales. And so in that for-profit space, learned a lot about collaborating for community impact, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to take that and actually go create community impact.
I like that.
And did work in the nonprofit space. And then I saw such a need in the baseball community and was like, you know what, I'm going to go not just help baseball players, but all athletes learn how to leverage their brands to be successful, not just in the for-profit space, but in the community impact they're trying to create.
I love it. I love it. So before we really get into the meat and potatoes, just kind of tell the audience who isn't familiar with you, like who Jennifer Paulino is, like how you got into what you do now, because I know just from the conversations we've had, you're extremely passionate about it. So just kind of where some of that passion stems from as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I am Dominican. I was born in the Dominican Republic. My father was in the U.S. Army, so we moved around a little bit for the first few years of my life and then really settled into the DMV and then the South Central Pennsylvania area. And throughout my entire life, I've been surrounded by athletes. I was an athlete myself, so I played softball. And a lot of what I did in the sports world while I was coming up was really community service. So I would volunteer as a coach. I would volunteer to really engage the community through sports. And then when I went into my career, I started my career in media. And I saw such a need for community impact, especially in Black and brown communities, because they didn't know any career outside of the lawyers, the doctors, the basic ones that we know. And then I said, you know what? I want to make a part of who I am somebody that creates impact in every community that I'm a part of. And so when I started growing through my career, I did experiential marketing, I did a nonprofit work. And when I got into the nonprofit space, I said, wow, nobody ever taught me that you could create community impact and generate revenue at the same time. Nobody taught me how valuable partnerships between for-profit and nonprofit entities were. And so as I started to go and pivot my career, I said, I want to do that. Like, I want to build the bridge between those two. And one of the things that really I was attracted to was helping baseball players, because my father was a baseball player. Everybody around me played baseball. And then some of the most important, iconic members of the Dominican community are baseball players or are very passionate about it. But yet we don't see the impact of their money in our community as prevalent as we should. So it's not that it's not there. It's not that we don't see it. It's just it could be much greater had they learned how to leverage it. And so I said, there's something there. Let me go dive into it and look. So I thought I was going to go get a master's, an MBA specifically in sports. And then halfway through that, I said, this is not serving the people that I need to serve. So I dropped out of grad school and I said, I'm going to go build this. And so here I am building, I'm on my entrepreneur journey, trying to teach people the importance of leveraging the gap between nonprofit and for-profit to really maximize not just the community impact, but also your revenue. There's a lot of great opportunities in that.
I like that. So when you say that you started off with baseball players, correct? Did it start off helping someone in your family, or did it transition into the professionals or the athletic level, or even maybe the high school? Because I know depending on the state and how big of a image that player technically has, there are some high schoolers who are kind of starting to dabble in that now. So where did you start off, and kind of like where are you dabbling now in the sports realm?
Quite honestly, it really started with my dad. So my dad, he is a very well-known person in our community in Dominican Republic,
Mm-hmm.
and he was looking for opportunities to be able to help the kids in our community. And he would always pull money out of his own pocket to fund all of the projects that he was doing in the community. And I said, no, no, no. There is a way for you to do this that does not require you to write the check.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else wants to write the check for you. You just haven't found that person. And so let's figure out how we can establish something that's going to generate revenue that you can leverage in order to go do that community impact.
That's deep. So how long ago did you originally start helping your father with that?
So my father has been doing this for a few years now, and it wasn't until about last year that I really said, "Let me dive into this with you." I've been doing nonprofit work for the last 3 years, and then prior to that, I had been working in the for-profit space doing community impact for about my career has been about 10 years so far,
Mm-hmm.
10-year career.
Okay, I like that. I like that. And throughout that journey, what has been one of the most influential pieces of knowledge, or one of the most influential people that you've either met, or one of the most influential things that you've learned that's kind of helped you throughout this journey?
So I would say the most influential person in bridging the gap between for profit and nonprofit was actually the CEO of the nonprofit that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started working, he came from the for profit space and actually business consultancy. And he would always encourage me to be creative and to really dive deeper into learning how we could generate more revenue each time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he was encouraging me to look at the nonprofit like a business, I turned around and I said, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
This is a business? I love business strategy. So when that encouragement came about, I said, okay, I'm going to buckle down and figure this out. So we started creating actual packages, offering services as a nonprofit to our partners because it became a way of us being able to service them more effectively that was more directly tied to their goals
Mm-hmm.
that they had, not just from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective or community impact
Exactly.
perspective, but from a bottom line and a top line.
What would be one of the primary reasons for connecting nonprofit organizations or businesses to for-profit organizations, specifically geared towards college athletes, and how can it benefit them?
Sorry, repeat it one more time.
That's okay. So, what's the benefit of connecting nonprofit to for-profit businesses, especially geared towards college athletes in this NIL space?
Yeah, so I'll start with the basics of connecting a nonprofit to a for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
So if the nonprofit is established as a 501c3, the for-profit that's donating to the nonprofit can get a tax write-off.
Mm-hmm.
That's first and foremost. So you're maximizing your revenue because you're creating community impact. You're getting visibility as an organization
Mm-hmm.
from the marketing space. And then you're also establishing more of a persona for your brand
Mm-hmm.
because now they can actually see what that looks like from a marketing perspective in real person. That's a weird term to use, but like as a real person. So the
Mm-hmm.
community impact that you're creating shows people this is what we do it for and this is why we do it, right? From a for-profit perspective. So you just got a tax write-off and you got free marketing
Mm-hmm.
to simplify it. From a college athlete perspective, a lot of college athletes right now with the NIL deals being such a big deal, they're starting to generate more revenue.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to get sponsorships. They're starting to get more opportunities. But where it really comes into play is they're not getting the same visibility as the pro athletes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if they start partnering with nonprofits, especially larger nonprofits, they're getting free marketing and visibility, and those nonprofits are getting a name that is also helping them elevate their community impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also ways to establish it where the sponsoring organization, so let's say it's like a big brand like a Nike or an Adidas that wants to sponsor that athlete, but for whatever reason they can't, they can get alignment to that athlete by partnering with the nonprofit. And the nonprofit brings in the college athlete.
So it's basically like the nonprofit is partnering with the athlete, but Nike is kind of like a sponsor for that nonprofit and whatever is going on for that particular.
Correct. So Nike gets alignment with that athlete, but it's not direct alignment. So it's not a conflict if Nike, for whatever reason, couldn't be with that athlete. Nike's actually sponsoring the nonprofit, not the athlete.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong. Now, in that particular paradigm, right, Nike could technically be the one that's paying for everything. The nonprofit is using its name, and then obviously the athlete is benefiting from through NIL and things like that. Oh,
Yep.
wow.
And then some nonprofits actually have funding that they can leverage to do speaker fees. They can leverage that funding to do speaker fees. They can leverage that nonprofit to be able to pay the athlete. But quite honestly, that's not the best route to go. The best route to go is for the athlete to donate their time. And so if they have some sort of LLC or they have services that they're offering, that they can get a tax write-off. So let's say, for example, you are an NIL athlete and you have your own clothing brand. You donate a portion of your clothing to that nonprofit. Now, you as an athlete don't just get alignment in the community, you also get a tax write-off.
Just for donating the clothing itself.
Yes, it's called an
So,
in-kind donation.
and that's with any business model as far as donating your product and or service as well.
Correct.
So let's just say you have let's say a financial literacy business, right? They have a financial literacy company that they have and teach people. If they go into the community and kind of host outreaches and classes, is that a tax write-off essentially?
Yep, that's an in-kind donation.
But that would have to be through a nonprofit organization, though,
Yep,
correct?
it has to be through a 501c3.
Gotcha. So how can athletes create their own business for themselves? And in doing so, would it be more beneficial for them to partner with the already existing nonprofit or create one for themselves?
So I say it depends on the athlete's capacity. I would say never create a for-profit with a nonprofit directly, just because there's certain loopholes that prevent you from, or restrictions that prevent you from donating to your own name. So you have to be careful how you structure it. But when you're creating your own for profit, it's important that you understand what your core values are as a company and that you understand what the purpose and the mission of your company is. Because a lot of people want to partner with nonprofits and they're like, well, it's not really working. We're not really seeing the results. And it's because your for profit is geared towards, I don't know, Asian Americans in Europe, for lack of a better example. And then you're partnering with a nonprofit that specializes in helping kids in poor Native communities in Mexico.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
There's no alignment there. And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people say, oh, this nonprofit came to me and they have this great initiative, but does the initiative that they're doing serve the people that your company serves? Is it aligned with the people that your company wants to impact? Is it aligned with the market that you're trying to reach? Because if you aren't able to say yes to all of those questions, that's not the organization to partner with for the purposes of what you're looking to partner with them for, which is brand elevation, brand recognition, visibility, or generating more revenue. Because if I have a for-profit that's dedicated to helping, let's say it's what I do now, right? So as a helping nonprofit and for-profits leverage that gap, right? And I'm partnering with a nonprofit in sports, now I can bring my business into that space and speak to other sponsors. I can speak to the actual demographic that we're serving themselves. And it becomes this beautiful mesh of us coming together to create this community impact, but also building partnerships with one another. But if I'm not in alignment across the board, then I can't create that synergy that is required to then use that as a catapult into the next space.
I like that. So can you name some specific examples of when there was synergy and alignment with the nonprofit and for-profit business and how that was basically successful for both parties? And if possible, if you have any instances where you know of that happening for an athlete as well, right? Because I know a lot of athletes are they either start their own nonprofit and are able to, do a lot of community outreach or things of that nature.
Yeah, so I'll give you a very recent example. So I am also part of a project called the Pickleball House. So the Pickleball House is a pop-up experience that we bring to major sports and entertainment events. So the entire point of the Pickleball House is to bring pickleball and networking together. So it's a way for us to create this exclusive invite only space to allow people to really understand how they can get into this fast growing sport, learn the sport, have a great time with it, and also meet amazing, really dope people. And most of the people that go there are very high level people. So they're CEOs, directors. Those are the people that we invite to this space. And for an event that we had in Miami, we partnered with the foundation of an NBA player, and his foundation helps bring access to sport to Black and brown communities in Miami specifically. And so we said, okay, we want to create community impact in the community that we are hosting this for-profit event in. So let's look. He found, our CEO found that particular foundation. We partnered with them, and people would have said, okay, that's a basketball player. What is he doing in pickleball? Right? But there is a large percentage of investors right now in the pickleball space that are from other sports. So you have players like Kevin Durant, Drew Brees,
Yeah.
LeBron James investing in pickleball. And this particular NBA player hadn't directly invested, but here he is partnering with his foundation and the Pickleball House to donate the courts that we used for that particular event to a low income community. So now those kids have access to the fastest growing sport.
Yeah, and I have heard pickleball is extremely fast growing, and it's crazy that you said like the Kevin Durant, LeBron James, because I can't remember how I heard of pickleball, but
Yeah.
I know when I heard of it, I heard, okay, Kevin Durant's the best. I was like, okay,
Yeah, they have teams.
like I don't know what pickleball is, but if KD and LeBron James and people like this are starting investing, let me kind of look into it. And I did hear it's extremely fast growing sport.
Yep.
So when they donated the courts, did they donate a pickleball court, or was it like a multi-use court that could maybe be used for basketball or tennis? Or
No, it was a pickleball court. We literally rolled the pickleball courts onto, because they're removable, we rolled them out onto a space that they had at this community center in Miami. And it was really dope because the foundation didn't actually have to pay for it. We got a sponsor to pay for the
Nice.
court donation and for the entire kids clinic that we had. So now the nonprofit got to receive that donation. I think we raised like $7,500 between two different foundations. But for that one specifically, the project, we were able to fund the whole thing with a donation from a corporation that gave us the money for it. And so the nonprofit got to register that as revenue, not just the donation of the money, but the actual value of the court. Because they receive the courts, they receive the donation, they get to write that as revenue. And then we now get to do this community impact and align this NBA player with a sport that they're not directly investing in from a capital perspective, but from a community impact they are. So now they're aligned with that sport.
I like that. So how do some of these connections in when it comes to obviously not just connections as far as nonprofit connections, but connections in general, right? How do connections like this help benefit college athletes, and especially how can they help gear them towards kind of coming into some of these nonprofit and for-profit alignments?
Yeah, I think the most important piece for a college athlete to look at is where are they trying to build their name and how are they trying to build their name, right? So I went to school with I went to Temple University. So at Temple, football and basketball were our biggest sports. And you would always see our football and our basketball players doing community work that was required of them because of the teams that they were on. Now, had they taken those specific projects and became a regular in those community centers, outside of just that particular thing that they had to do, they're now establishing a connection with the community. So now the community is going to follow them. You almost start building like what, for lack of a better term, a pipeline of fans. So you as a college athlete go into the community that you're playing college in, Now, that team is not that community is not just going to follow you if you play for their local home team, but if you go to the other side of the country and you start playing over there, they're still going to follow you because they know that you have loyalty and have invested your time into that community. So those are the people that are going to buy your clothes. Those are the people that are going to buy your shoes. Those are the people that are going to follow you on Instagram and continuously engage with your content. And so now you've created this pipeline of fans that are going to follow you throughout the progression of your career. And if you decide I no longer want to be an athlete, or for whatever reason you don't make it pro, you still have a community of people that know your character and know who you are as a person and what you're willing to bring to the table for the community. So whatever you do next, you can leverage that same community.
I like that. And I feel recently saw a picture, and although LeBron is an extremely like perfect example of everything essentially going right, I saw a picture basically that just said it was like this is how long LeBron has been in the league, and it showed a picture of him at a basketball camp. I can't remember whose camp it was or whatnot, but I think it was, just one of those organizations that help, just bring kids to players.
Yeah.
And you saw Jason Tatum and,
Yeah.
and some of these, as like a little kid, and some of these other players that are in the NBA that were like basically kids when he was still a superstar. And it just kind of goes to show like feeding into the community. You never know who you're inspiring. You never know what my mentor always says this: once you're exposed to something, you can't be unexposed, right? Yep. So just the aspect of some of these athletes going into community and showing them, hey, like, I'm just a regular person like you, right? It can help them essentially be like, this is something that is actually obtainable. Because, we often see our favorite athletes, our favorite entertainers, whatever. And sometimes they seem, larger than life because, you always see them on TV screen, but you never see them in person. And when you do, they're surrounded by a whole bunch of people. But them just being able to, be in the community and just sacrifice their time, it just kind of, shows a different side of them. It makes them seem more human, right? It makes them seem more genuine of a person. Yeah. So how can some of these things just kind of aid in the overall growth of an athlete's brand in general, right? I know we talk about, it helps them increase fans, but like, how can it help them on the business side of it as well?
Yeah, I think the first piece is the piece that we don't talk a lot about, and I'm glad that the conversation is starting to come up more, is the mental health piece. If you are not mentally healthy or working on your mental health, you can't do anything else in life at the most effective level. And so with that being said, as athletes start getting into these communities, they start opening up space in their mind to be creative. They start opening up space in their mind to be motivated, to be fueled, to continue to do the work in the for-profit and the nonprofit space. As they start building their for-profit businesses, they're now inspired by the community that's actually going to go buy their products or engage with their services or their content, because you also create almost like an incubator for yourself when you're in these community environments. Because let's say you are an athlete that really is passionate about sports in low income communities, right? Because you come from a low income community. The more you go back to that community has evolved so much since you were in it. So now you going back to it shows you what are the gaps that now need to be filled? What are the services that now need to be provided? What are the products that they want to see? And it's almost like you're getting free market research just by being in the community, because you're able to firsthand see not only how can I market to this community through this engagement, but you actually get the insights on what that community wants to see. Because the kids will start telling you, their parents will start telling you, their coaches and everybody around them will start telling you, hey, the sports industry is missing X, Y, and Z, and it needs this, this, and that. And so now you start building your for-profit business off of the needs of the actual community you want to serve. So let's say you're really into dogs, right? So I worked on a project for an NFL player who he has a dog. And so we were looking to build this benefit that we were doing, an annual benefit. And one of the companies that came to us was a dog grooming place. And they were like, hey, we want to partner because we know that this player has a dog and they're very passionate about it. And so here's an opportunity for this NFL player to go out and say, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, and I want to do more for the community of dog lovers. It's super random for an NFL player in your mind, but it's true to who he is. It's true to his reality. And so now he gets to tap into this market of people that would have never followed him because maybe they don't like football, but they like dogs.
Exactly. And one thing I've had to learn is, right, I'm still a fan when it comes to sports, is these players still have lives outside of sports, right? They still do things besides just play the sport that they're playing, whether that's on a high school, college, or professional level. So a lot of times athletes, just from what I've had, just from conversations I've had with athletes, they seem a bit lost, after sports, or, when sports is about to become an end for them, and, they didn't want to go professional or couldn't go professional. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what else I like. In all actuality, it's not like your entire life. 9 times out of 10, there are probably some of those athletes who it literally is just that sport all day, every day. But 9 times out of 10, you have other hobbies, you have other interests. I'm sure you went to school for something as well. So I like to let them know your life doesn't end. It doesn't start or end with sports, right? Because you're more than just your sport. You are, like you said, if you like dogs, you could be an avid dog lover, right? You could be someone who wants to help rescue dogs, right? Because I know there are certain cities that have more stray dogs than others, or
Yep.
maybe I travel a lot. There are a lot of dogs in other countries that dogs are just walking around, right? So maybe like you're from the Dominican Republic, maybe people are from different countries and different areas of the world where they just want to help they're passionate about dogs. Now they just want to help all the stray dogs in their
Yep.
home country, right? So it's more than just, your sport. It's more than, what's on the surface level of what people see you as. There are a lot of other things that you love, that people love, that you can still essentially turn that passion into profits. So what has been one of the most influential nonprofit organizations that you've been able to help partner with for another business?
I would say for me, it was the nonprofit that I actually used to work for, which was the Association of Latino Professionals, Alpha for short. We were able to partner when I first came onto the organization. I was a client relationship manager, and I remember we were generating under $2 million in the year. And when I took on the director role a few months later, I started really looking at the people we were partnering with, and I was like, wow, there's these really large corporations. They have a lot of money. Why are they nickeling and diming the efforts that they're putting into helping elevate the Latino community by recruiting them? I was like, so you want to pour in minimal dollars to recruit quality candidates? That doesn't make any sense. That's not an alignment. So I started re-educating the population that I was connecting with from a partnership and sponsorship perspective, and saying, hey, this is what we actually can do to serve this community. This is the part that we play. This is the part that you play. But more than that, we need to pour in more dollars. We need to actually make sure that I forget who said it, but during COVID, there was a lot of talk around diversity and inclusion. And somebody said, we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to start actually not just talking about being inclusive and creating safe space and creating equity for Black and Brown communities, but we need to put money behind that.
The right amount of money.
Exactly. And so when I started doing that work, I realized how vast the opportunities were to teach people how to not just pour money into community initiatives, but actually align your business to that. Actually align you as a person to that. Because a lot of times it wasn't even, they might have had the money in place and it was a substantial amount of money and the impact wasn't being made because the person that was handling the partnership wasn't in alignment with the goals of what the partnership was supposed to be. And so that's one of the most important things, I think, when you're even looking to establish a nonprofit or as a for-profit partner with a nonprofit. And even if you're a for-profit, any initiative that you do, make sure it aligns with the ideology of not just the business that you imagined, but who you are. And that's the part that a lot of athletes miss. A lot of athletes don't know who they are off the field, to your point. And it's not because they aren't anybody outside of the sport, it's because nobody's offered them the space
Mm-hmm.
to explore that.
I like that. I like that. And I wanted to kind of touch back on something you were saying earlier with when you originally had looked at the nonprofit that you were with, and you said they were doing just under 2 million a year, but you're like, they're big companies. And what are some of the barriers and challenges of connecting these nonprofit and for-profit companies, and especially when you're trying to get more money out of them on any level, whether it's from
Yeah.
a larger company or whether down all the way down to, a beginner non-starter?
Yeah, I would say the biggest hurdle for nonprofits is that people hear nonprofit and they think no profit.
Mm-hmm. Nonprofit and no profit are two different things.
Yep. And so nonprofit means we are not here to generate a profit to put in our pocket,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are not here to generate a profit for our own servitude, but we are here to generate enough revenue that we can create long lasting legacies in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean we spend all the money the same year.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people operate their nonprofits from a space of, oh, money in, money out. And it's like, no. And that was one of the most important lessons that I learned in my nonprofit role was the money that comes in doesn't always have to go out. Sometimes you need to keep that money internally to build the infrastructure for your nonprofit to be able to serve a larger group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it became this thing where I realized the biggest challenges that we face in the nonprofit space is thinking that you cannot invest as a nonprofit, thinking that you cannot build anything in the nonprofit space that is grand. And then you look at foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I tell people, I was like, you think they're writing their own checks? They're not writing their own checks.
They're still getting other corporations to write it for them?
And it's not even other corporations. There's endowments. There's other ways for you to be able to pour money into your nonprofit by investing. There's investments that people make that then they leverage to go into their nonprofits. There's people that build for profits, establish nonprofits, and then roll a portion of their nonprofits into trusts. And
Mm-hmm.
those trusts then later found other nonprofits and other for-profit businesses. And it just becomes a cycle. But because we're not taught any of this as Black and brown people, we just accept the lowest minimum wage or the lowest amount that we can get from a sponsor without realizing, no, you can negotiate. You just have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure, to the point of like what my mentor says, you have to make sure that the value is there.
Exactly.
If the value is not there, then you can't ask for premium.
Price is only an issue if value is absent.
Exactly.
That's crazy. We got the same mentor.
I don't know. Is Shayla your mentor?
Shayla's in the same mentorship group that's her mentors. So
So
that explains a lot. Okay, okay. So how do you address some of the challenges and barriers that do come up when trying to put together a nonprofit and for-profit organization?
the challenges and the barriers.
Like, how do you address it? Not just
Yeah.
what are they, but how do you then, okay, I've established that this is something that is an issue. How can I now turn this to my advantage? Like what we just said, price is only an issue if value is absent. Let's just
Right.
say your value isn't where it needs to be currently. How can you then increase that so you can then get more money?
I think it starts with first asking the question, what is the goal of this marriage? What is the goal of this partnership? What are we trying to establish together? Once you know that, then the rest is easy. Because if you know what the goals are as the nonprofit, you can see, okay, this partnership needs me to do X, Y, and Z, but right now I'm doing one, two, three.
Mm-hmm.
1 and 2 are essential to my business model, but 3 is not.
Mm-hmm.
Y could really elevate 1 and 2. So let's pivot what we're offering as a nonprofit to be 1, 2, Y.
So as in that changing variable, is that okay? Okay.
So it's really about making slight shifts in your business model, both on the nonprofit and the for-profit side, that are going to be in alignment with what you're trying to do, or just realize that that is not the partnership for you and keep it moving.
Gotcha.
And the second one is the part that I want to encourage more
Mm-hmm.
versus shifting your what you truly believe in. But for some people that works. For some people, like I there have been times with what I was doing in the nonprofit space that we pivoted to serve our partners. And we pivoted to serve our partners because our nonprofit was about serving our community, and our community was being served by getting them into these corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So because we were the bridge between the corporations and the community that the corporation was trying to hire,
Mm-hmm.
we had to cater to both audiences in a way that helped them come together. So there were certain things that we said, okay, we're going to pivot a little bit here, or we're going to do a little bit of that. Like for a long time, it was like a finance and accounting organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized that the community had grown so vast that it was incorporating other professionals. So they changed their name.
Like the nonprofit organization changed their name?
Yeah.
And did they change their mission as well on how they? Okay.
They just changed their name and made the mission inclusive to not just finance and accounting professionals, but all Latino professionals.
So it changed their name and just kind of like grew so they kept their core, just added a bit more on to what they already were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's why I said you don't have to. And there were certain things that they stopped doing over time, right? Certain things that were not aligned anymore with the community that they were growing. So they dropped it. And that's why I said you go from being 1, 2, 3 and the people you're partnering with being XYZ to 1, 2, Y.
Okay.
Because now you're taking things on. But to the point of dropping partnerships, I think one of the things that we as humans don't do very well is walking away from the things that don't serve us. Right. Or we walk away too fast. And so there's also the piece of before you even enter a partnership as a for-profit or a nonprofit, ask yourself the question, what are we doing this for? And how long are we willing to do it? So a lot of people don't realize like you can generate revenue by creating certain structures within your business that allow for longevity in that relationship for you to co-create. And so that comes in many different forms. But when you start thinking outside the box and align the box with the overall mission that you're trying to build, that really brings together the opportunity to think creatively about how to generate revenue on both sides.
So what are some of the strategies you use to help nonprofit and for-profit businesses actually collaborate, and how can college athletes use some of those same strategies to help partner themselves with the right nonprofits?
Yeah, there is such a large variety of ways to do that. But I'll tell you, my top 3 is volunteerism, 2 is partnerships, and 3 is marketing, content
Volunteerism,
marketing.
partnerships, and content marketing.
Those are the 3 major ones, especially for college athletes. So volunteerism, them just showing up and donating their time, that in itself is going to generate revenue for them in the long run because they're going to get access to a network. They're going to get visibility. They're going to get a brand image that is really conducive to a positive look on them. So it's like, oh, this person is taking their own time to go do this thing because they really care about it. And now you're getting people's attention for the right reasons. Also, not that I encourage this, but a lot of people that are in the sports world, when they do things that are not the best for their brand image,
They go partner with some gullible nonprofit like dogs, babies, and sick people to they partner with basically something that you can't be mad at to help boost their image. I've seen it before
yeah.
and stuff like that. So
And a lot of people don't know that's what they're doing. A lot of people don't realize that is a very intentional thing. It's I messed up and now I gotta go fix it. And it's almost like I say like atonement for their sins almost when they go to partner with these nonprofits. And I'm like, that's what you don't do. Because had you been doing that before you had to atone for your sins, which I don't believe in, but I think if you go about the route of continuously partnering and continuously building that brand image, when you do make a mistake, the blow would have been lighter
yeah,
already.
it wouldn't have been as harsh because they know the type of character you are already, rather than the actual person that the media is trying to portray you as.
Yeah. And so now it doesn't look like you're putting on a show. So to the point of what can they do? Volunteerism. Show up for your community.
And you said partnerships was second.
Partnerships is second.
And
So that's finding somebody that you know aligns with you as an athlete and asking them to partner with you, not just to be a face or representative for their organization, but to also partner in how do you generate revenue together. So are you bringing in sponsors for them and those people are sponsoring you and you're donating them money on their behalf? Or are they bringing in sponsors and then helping you generate revenue through content creation, marketing, et cetera, or speaker fees, whatever the case is, depending on the athlete. And then the last part, which is content creation. So as you're creating content, they need content as well. So how can you get a videographer to donate to the nonprofit their services, and you're creating content? That videographer, if they have an LLC corporation, whatever, they get a tax write-off because they're donating their services to a 501c3 through an in-kind. And now you guys are partnering together to create this content.
Look, I know this podcast is geared towards helping college athletes, but any video marketers out there, she just gave y'all a quick gem. On a tax write-off right then and there, just from offering your services, right?
Yep.
So how do you evaluate the success and impact of the connections and careers of college athletes and how they could form through nonprofit and for-profit organizations?
I think the first part is establishing a KPI. What are you measuring against? Like, what is that key performance indicator? Is that your Instagram following? Is that the number of calls that you get from sponsors? What is that? Once you establish that key performance metric, then you can say, okay, I know that I can only partner with nonprofits that are generating $5 million a year, because the visibility that I seek is not going to come from partnering with a small organization. So instead of partnering with my with the local group, I'm partnering with the Boys and Girls Club of America, or I'm partnering with the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, right? It's this knowing what you're trying to measure against so that you know who you should be in alignment with. Because a lot of nonprofit organizations do the same thing. They just do it in a slightly different way in different markets. And so how do you find the one that's best for you is determined by what are you trying to get out of it. So if you, let's say, went to Temple University, but you're originally from St. Louis, you need to be partnering when you're in the off season at home. You don't need to be partnering as heavily in the local community as you should be at home. So maybe at home you're partnering with the Boys and Girls Club, and in Philly you're partnering with the very local community, or vice versa, depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Gotcha. So what's some advice that you'd give to nonprofit organizations and for-profit businesses and how college athletes are interested in it? So, all right, let me rephrase that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
For a college athlete to establish their own connection, what would be a key piece of advice that you would give for them?
I would say start with your passions. Start with your passions. With all of my clients, I do this thing where I walk them through a baseball game or an at-bat session, right? So they come up to bat, and I start with, what's going to get you to first base? And that's your passions. Your passions are always going to get you to first base. And once you're on base, then the hard part is done. Now everybody else has to come up to bat to get you going around the bases. And you have to really understand, if I am in alignment with my passions and I use that to propel me around, then I can jump off to the different things. And my dad used to always say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing. If you align yourself with what you love, it will never feel draining. It will never feel draining because you understand the purpose behind the pain. You understand the purpose behind the work. You understand the purpose behind the struggle. And most importantly, you will always find the space to continue doing it because it's something that fuels you. When it stops being your passion, that's when you're like,
That's amazing. So, what's your passion?
My passion. That's a great question. So, my passion is human connectivity. I'm very big on just loving humans. For me, I've always loved to understand humans, the way that they function, the way that they work. Like my parents have this running joke. They were like, "You don't listen to people, you read people." And I'm like, "What do you mean? That sounds so horrible." And they're like, "It's not that you're not listening to them, but I'm the type of person that I will look at somebody and I will read what they're not telling me versus what they're telling me." Because one thing that I realized is that your actions will always speak louder than their words, and the things that are unsaid speak louder than the words that are actually coming out of your mouth. And so if I can understand why that person is telling me what they're telling me, it's better and more effective communication for me personally. And so one of my passions is just learning about humans. So I read a lot of books around like how humans function, the psychology, why people do what they do. I love reading self-help books, not because I actually want to learn the self-help part of the book, but I want to see how the author connected something that another author said exactly the same thing, but connected it differently. Because it tells me a lot about their background story and how they've come up.
And how their views are, and how I feel as if two people can go through the exact same situations, the exact same, everything in life, and still have two different outlooks and put together things differently. So I do resonate with what you're saying as far as how somebody can take two things and connect it differently.
Yeah.
So
I always say that perspective can be deceptive
what do you mean by that?
because your perspective is subjective to your experience. And my perspective is subjective to my experience. And we're both in this space right now, but you could be seeing something that's not reality at all because you were triggered by something that I said or something that I did. And now you have this skewed ideology of who I am or what's happening in the situation that's not true to the reality that I or Marcus is living, even though we're all in the same space. Right. And so those are the kind of things where you realize like it can be deceptive when you're not really fully in tune into understanding self-awareness and understanding what about your perspective is reality and what about your perspective is based on things that you've experienced in a past reality. It's not the current reality.
Exactly. I like that. Man, we could talk forever as far as that. But I do want to ask a few more questions before we close out. One would be, what are some tools or organizations or resources that a college athlete could use or go to right now to help them learn more about nonprofits and how to partner with them?
I think the fastest way for any college athlete to partner with a nonprofit is go to your school's website. Go to your school's website, check out what organizations your school is partnering with, because that's an easy connection. You're already a part of the system that's communicating with the nonprofit in that local space. Also, look at the things that you're passionate about, right? And then look at the companies that you enjoy engaging with. Who are they partnering with? Because then becomes a good synergy between the both of you, because now you're partnering with companies that you already buy their products, and then you're aligned with the mission and the purpose of the organizations that they're partnering with. Now you've created this space where maybe that company can't sponsor you directly right now, but you've built that relationship. So in the future, maybe they can sponsor you, or when you become a pro athlete, maybe they can sponsor you, but you have that relationship.
Or maybe even the dynamic that you were speaking of earlier, they can't sponsor you directly, but they can sponsor one of the companies that they sponsor, and if you partner with them, then it can kind of still be that
alignment.
paradigm.
Yep.
That's amazing. So, is there any other last piece of advice that you'd give a college athlete viewing this in regards to anything we've spoken about, whether it's nonprofits, for profits, the synergy of them, the non synergy of them, how to close out anything?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing as a college athlete is understanding why you do what you do. So, why are you playing the sport that you're playing? Are you playing it because you're trying to build a lasting legacy for your family? Are you trying to build something for your community? Why are you doing what you're doing? who are you? And not just who are you as in my name is Jennifer Paulino, but it's who are you as a person? So for me, it's I'm Jennifer Paulino and I am passionate about humans. And so therefore I live the world in a way that is conducive to elevating all of the humans that I meet. So if I can do something for you, I'm going to do it. If I can support you in any way, I'm going to do it. If I need to get out of the way for you to have the way, I'm going to do it because I founded my personal brand on servitude, right? So, because you will never settle for anything that is not aligned to either one of those things, which means you can't lose.
I like that. I like that. And where can our audience find you at? Like, say if they had questions or wanted to utilize your services, where can they find you at?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at _Jen Alexa, Jen with 2 N's.
And anything you want to say to the audience, to the fans that's out here watching right now?
Know who you are. My dad used to always say, remember who you are. And then he would say, it builds character. And so if you know who you are, nobody can move you, nobody can stop you, nobody can shake you from your core because the reality that you are living is cemented in a foundation that is strong. It's cemented in a foundation that can't be moved, and you will forever be grateful for the things that are continuously coming your way because you know that they are a part of what is making you a better version of you each day. So regardless of the struggle, the trials, or the tribulations that you experience, when you know who you are, you know that all of those things are coming your way to build your character so that you can continue elevating.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And look, if you haven't already, go ahead and make sure you follow her and go ahead and like and subscribe this video. If you have any questions on anything that was said, go ahead and drop them down below and I'll make sure I get to them. And thank you again for watching another episode, and we'll see you next time. Let's go.